Good morning and welcome everybody here to this Lakers Lowdown. I'm Anthony Irwin. Today on the show, I will be opening up the mailbag, diving into some of your questions. You want to know about Austin Reaves, you want to know about the Lakers record, you want to know about any number of things, so let's go ahead and dive on in. All right, so the first question here comes via the iTunes mailbag, and again, the best way to get your topic covered here on the show is to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Those reviews really help the show grow as it continues to. You guys have been incredible in all of these respects. And, you know, I'll ask for questions on Blue Sky and on Threads and on Twitter, obviously, and I'll have a couple topics coming from there too. But the best way, the surest way to get your topic covered is to leave it in the form of a 5-star review like this one from Lakers boy. Sup, Anthony? I feel like the Lakers have been hiring all of Lakers Twitter and making them state-sponsored media. Pete, Darius, Aaron, what's the deal with that? LOL. Aaron literally disagrees with 95% of what you say to back the team/NBA at large. Oh, and how are you feeling about JHS after Summer League? All right, so I'm going to be somewhat careful here because, like, all of those guys are, you know, my friends, so I'm not going to shit on them. There's no need to shit on them either. But it's a smart move by the Lakers. You know, the Lakers realize that there are respected voices out there. And if they can bring those voices in-house and have those voices, I don't, look, here's the thing. Pete, Darius, Mike will never lie to you in their content. They all care about the sport so much that they are going to respect it. They are going to respect their audience. And, you know, that spin is really easy to pick up on when it's offered up. And I think in all of their cases with the LFR show, and by the way, it isn't officially a Lakers thing, but, you know, Pete does work for the Lakers. True works for Spectrum, which is a corporate partner of the Lakers. Darius writes for Lakers.com. So I'm not speaking out of hand here in mentioning them. I'm also answering your question directly. But yeah, I with all three of those guys, it is really smart of the Lakers to go out. And by the way, every team should be doing this. If there's a trusted voice, a respected voice out there, teams are wise to bring those voices in. They did the same thing with Kevin Ding before. And although I haven't seen him produce any content recently, it's been a while, but yeah, in the case of LFR and in the case of those three guys, they are hugely respected voices within the Lakers content community. And also they earned those opportunities. Darius was probably the best just straight blogger, writer, you know, that came out of that universe. Pete revolutionized. You see so many team film room accounts all over the place because of what Pete brought to the table there. And then obviously True is incredible at what he does too. You know, he's a great sideline reporter, has developed a great rapport with everybody there within the Lakers community, and that brings in insight and information to those post-game interviews that, you know, national interviews don't always bring to the table because they don't necessarily have those relationships with them. So I think it can be quote unquote state media, and it can also be productive. It can also be good content, and they make good content. That's all that really should matter. There are going to be some topics that they aren't going to tackle. But there's so much content out there that you can get that from everybody. I've always, like, as this industry has grown, one thing that I've always really kind of pushed back upon or pushed back against is this notion that we're all in direct competition with everybody. When the Lakers are good, people are going to look for as much Lakers content as they can get their hands on. When the Lakers went on that playoff run, everybody's numbers went up because Lakers fans are going to want to go out and hear all kinds of people say nice things about the team that they root for. And if you can present a unique, nice thing to say about them, then your content is going to do well. And then, on the other side of that, if the Lakers aren't doing very well, there's value in being able to say that the Lakers aren't doing very well. And like, that's the thing that I would push back on when people think of the LFR pod as just state media. Those guys are critical. Those guys will say, that a certain player isn't carrying the weight that they need to carry to make the Lakers as successful as they can be. I listen to their pod. It's a really good pod. It's just like Sportsnet, Spectrum Sportsnet's coverage of the Lakers too. Initially, in like the infancy of that relationship, yeah, like they were feeling things out, and there were certain things and certain topics that content wouldn't touch. And it was because of that a lot of my stuff became as popular as it did, because, people wanted to hear Byron Scott criticized, and James Worthy wasn't going to hop on there with a brand new employer and criticize one of his closer friends. So yeah, but over the years, James Worthy is about as hard on the Lakers as anybody. When the Lakers, over the last couple of years, while Russell Westbrook was there, while the Lakers kept falling on their faces, it was a lot of times James Worthy who would hop on the show and be like, "This is bullshit. We all we all should demand more of the Lakers than they're giving us." So, yeah, I think we are entering an era of state-sponsored media. We see these autobiographical documentaries pop up that are basically just commercials, and I think everybody can kind of see those for what they are at this point. And I think this week I'm going to be talking to somebody on that topic. I'm going to be talking to somebody on that topic, and asking him why he thinks that those aren't resonating the way that they maybe could. And yeah, I just look, I you guys know this. I love Pete. It's like a brother to me. So I also am not going to be biased in talking about this necessarily. But Pete and I go way back. Darius, gave me one of my first opportunities. Not gave me. I had to email him like 37 times. And True and I have been, pretty fairly close, whatever. It for most of the time that I've been in this industry, we were both Vikings fans, so we text about that a ton too. So like I can't be unbiased when I talk about this. And look, like you guys know how I feel about Aaron. I'm not going to hear anything besmirching him. Again, there are some things that he does. There are some boundaries where he says that unnamed cognac is delicious or whatever. But the fact that we have somebody as close to the Lakers organization as we do, willing to just hop on here and give the insight that he does, is insane. A lot of fan bases don't get that as an opportunity, and I hope that you guys are really understanding of how unique that is. He has said it too, that the game, meaning basketball, has been too good to him to hop on here and lie. If I'm going on one of my rants about the Lakers or whatever and talking about how insular they can be and where that might create drawbacks and stuff, he's going to say, you make fair points. But he's also going to be fair in his retorts to those points if there are retorts to be made. So I think we can acknowledge that there are some potential, I'm not even going to call them conflicts of interest, but there are some relationships that are at play there, professional relationships that are at play there, that might sometimes alter the things that are covered. But if you want to listen to those topics covered, there's plenty of other options out there one of them being the show. And, when the Lakers aren't doing very well, our numbers tend to be a little bit better because there are other shows that won't touch that stuff. And, it's just the nature of the beast. And it's good and it's bad. There's so much competition here that I feel bad for younger people who were trying to break into this industry because it's so saturated in Lakers content that it's really difficult to break into. But on the other hand, for the sake of like the listener and the reader and the viewer, the fan experience, because of how much content there is, it forces us to all be as good as we can possibly be and to continue to try to push ourselves to be better. And that means that Lakers fans out there, I think, can be among the most informed on their team as any. It doesn't mean that they won't be biased. Every fan is inherently biased. But in terms of like how educated or informed a Laker fan can be compared to others where there isn't as much competition in coverage of that team, it's a pretty cool situation that we have here. So I appreciate the question. I understand where we're trying to go with it, but I love those guys too much to just flat out call them PR or state media. Next question here comes from Christofides. I don't know. How many games do you see AD playing? Do you think he should be load managed? What's your predicted win total? That comes up later as well. At LakerFan Forever 87 asks, what do you think our record will be next season? So I guess I'll just answer that right off the bat. Predictions are impossible. The Lakers are like a pulled hamstring away from, especially in the division that they're going to be playing in. If AD or LeBron get hurt, the Lakers will probably have a really high draft pick next year because you're playing 4 games against the toughest division in the league. But if the Lakers get relatively decent health, and if Reaves steps up, and if Rui steps up, and if Vincent is enough of an upgrade, the Lakers could be right there at 48 to like 52 wins, in that range, 50 wins or so. Probably a 3 or a 4 seed, I think. Maybe a 2. I don't think the Lakers are going to push themselves to win as many games as they absolutely possibly could, because LeBron and AD are going to save some juice for the playoffs, as they should. So, yeah, to get to the first part of that, right, you asked about how many games do I think AD will play. I think his goal is to play I think it's 65 games that players need to play in order to be eligible for year-end awards. I would probably say that's the goal that AD is shooting for. And it's going to be interesting to see how many players aim for 65, maybe get an extra tweak in there and wind up having to either push themselves to get to 65 or just wind up falling short. And I'm really curious to see what everybody's approach to that is going to be. But I think if AD can play 65 games, sit out, 15 to 17 or whatever, and if you get a fairly similar number there with LeBron, I think he's probably going to be a little closer to 60 would be my guess with LeBron. And then from there, this is the nice thing about the way that the Lakers are put together. There is enough depth there, I think, to be able to get by in games where you don't have one of those guys. In games that you don't have either of them, Lakers are going to suck. It's going to be really difficult to win in those situations. But in games where they only have one of them, I think the roster is put together well enough, and there's enough talent across the roster to be able to win some of those games where you only have one of them. And I think you could do enough winning to get to about 50 wins on the season. I think that'd be a good, successful regular season. Random Bias writes, last year, Austin Reaves had a phenomenal season, especially after the trades. My question is, what do you think his ceiling is? He was 4th in true shooting percentage among qualified players last year, is a 3-level scorer, and is elite at going to the line. With similar efficiency and an increase in volume, I think Reaves could have an all-star game or two in his future. Curious to know what you think. Thanks as always for the great content. Thank you for the question and thank you for the compliment. I'll happily take those. But I think Reaves can be an above average starter in the NBA. And that would be like my floor of expectations. Everything above that, where you're talking about him being top 5 to 10 at his position, I think is in the realm of possibility. I don't think he'll ever be like in an absolutely elite, top 5 at his position, 1 to 5, but I think he can be in that 5 to 10 range, maybe 5 to 15 range at his position, which makes him above average as a starter in this league. And a lot of it is going to have to do with the shooting. His shooting in the playoffs he was a knockdown shooter. He has seen steady growth in that regard, and his shot is such that there's enough consistency and he can replicate that shooting motion and the arc and the backspin on that shot often enough that makes me think he's going to be a really good shooter. He's good at the line, which is one of the things that you really look for there. I'm curious what bulking up does to him as a shooter. Sometimes guys lose a little bit of range of motion. Like when you watch Dwight Howard shoot and he like can't fully extend his arm on his follow through, and it's because his biceps are so strong that his arms just like won't fully extend. I had a buddy in high school who eventually became a professional, lifter, like world's strongest man kind of thing. And he was a football player in high school, and everybody thought like that he was going to be this incredible future pro kind of athlete, but he did so much lifting that he wasn't able to fully extend his arms, and because of that, it made him worse as a blocker as a football player. And shooting is obviously not the same thing as blocking on the edge in football, but you do need your full range of motion to be able to, put the ball on the platter and to have like a lot of people, I like to, come a little further back on my shot than the 90 degrees, but a lot of people, shooting coaches will teach 90-degree bend at the elbow, 90-degree bend at the wrist to kind of make like a square or a rectangle, trying to bring that into view, right? And if you get stronger and your range of motion is impacted, then that impacts your ability as a shooter. And I don't think Reaves will ever get that strong. I think that would always be a stretch there. If he does, then whoever is kind of coaching him there would be doing him a disservice. But he does need to get stronger. He, defensively, he can sometimes get kind of bodied a little bit. And offensively, he is really good at getting to the line, but in the playoffs, we did start to see him at times get a little out physicaled. And, remember the very first playoff game that he played, I was like, oh no. Made me really nervous because he does, really rely on getting to the free throw line to kind of help his production offensively. And if he was just one of those grifter players that didn't play well in the playoffs, I was just like, no, please, not this guy. I really like his game. But to his credit, grew from that experience, learned, and was one of, I don't think it's a stretch at all to say he was the third best Laker during the playoffs over the course of the run that they had. And if you're the third best player on a team that got to the Western Conference Finals, that means you're an above average player at your position. And if you're above average starter at your position, that means you're anywhere from 1 to 15 in the league. And I think, from there, if I'm just setting his ceiling, I could see him being a top 5 to 10 player at his position. And I think given where he started, where he, came into the league, that's an incredible accomplishment. So, I again, it's going to be the shooting, it's going to be the defense. We need to see what he's capable of, spending more time on the ball over the course of a regular season or a full season. Now that teams have the scouting report on him, that's also going to be interesting to see how he counters the way that teams defend him. And then also, look, the league apparently is going to be trying to crack down on the on the grifting and on getting to the free throw line through insurance fraud, and he does participate in some of that. So how he adjusts to the way that he gets refereed is also going to be really interesting. I have full faith though that he'll be able to handle that situation quite well. All right. So last iTunes question here is Viva Exceptionalism writes, I listen to almost all Lakers podcasts, and yours is by far my favorite. A great mix of content and entertainment. You and Harrison should take your show on the road. Thanks so much, but no pineapple on pizza ever. We were this close to like the perfect comment. Quick question. Do you think expiring contracts have more, less, or the same value under the new CBA as they did under the old one? My guess is less, but it's just a guess. Thanks. I do, however, miss your have a great day. Make somebody else's sign off. We need more people to do that. Lakers OG. I could bring that back. We could do that. All right. So, man, that's a long time listener if you're doing that. All right. So the question about the CBA and the impact on expiring contracts. I thought coming into this offseason that expiring contracts were going to be more valuable as teams try to align themselves for incoming tax structures that were going to be a lot more punitive than in years past. It turns out they actually went a step further than that, and cap space was a lot more valuable than in years past as teams paid rent to other teams to take those bad contracts and gave up assets to those teams that took bad contracts into their cap space. And, I thought, and we'll see what the trade deadline looks like, and we'll kind of see what package winds up landing Damian Lillard and what package it takes to land James Harden and all of that stuff. But as of right now, I think I agree that expiring contracts are worth a little bit less in this CBA than they were before. That can change. Like we saw, it was funny. I got some shit for saying after the Rui trade that I thought that the market might be kind of resetting itself. Turns out I was right. But I remember, watching that because I just thought it was just not sustainable that Rudy Gobert was going to be the baseline for what it's going to cost to get anybody with any talent, and it's going to cost 73 first rounders. I think like in the case of OKC, they're going to wind up paying more than most teams because they have the money to be able to do so. Not the money, but the assets to be able to do so. But in general, I do think the market has recovered after the summer of Gobert and Mitchell. I would be kind of surprised. Just as I say that the expiring contracts are worth a little bit less, I think first round picks and early second round picks are going to be really valuable in this next CBA because in both of those cases, those are cost-controlled players that you could sign to, nice and lengthy contracts at a nice low number. And I think that like it's going to take a lot to moving a first-round pick from non-OKC teams. You're going to be getting an impact player for that first-round pick. And in the case of, one thing to really watch for too with picks is early second rounders being actually worth more than late first rounders. That's going to be really interesting to watch how that dynamic plays out. We saw with the Celtics, they traded out of the first round to get into the early second round. And I think that's kind of what we're going to start seeing moving forward, as now you can give second rounders like that extra year without having to dip into your exception money. So I think draft picks, the price on those has gone way up. Expiring contracts has gone slightly down. And because this market is, and all markets are always going to be very dynamic, we could see that change very quickly. And I think it's all going to start with the return on Dame. That's the thing to watch for, is the return on Dame, the return on Harden, and the return on whatever star asks out next. Donovan Mitchell comes to mind. And as those teams kind of figure this out, and as everybody just kind of, walks this dark trail with a faulty flashlight together, these things are going to be very shifting, very dynamic, and what we think these things are worth right now might not be worth the same a month from now. All right, last question here comes from Hunter Heffing on Twitter. Left a review, but don't know if it will go through in time for the pod. It did not, so I'll keep an eye out for that. Another question I'm curious for your opinion is, which team do you think will underperform the most next year? You mentioned the Suns' volatility and that Sacramento might be the worst in the division next season. So Sacramento had crazy injury luck last year. Now, part of the way that we look at that statistically is that Domantas Sabonis just like played through a broken hand. So maybe that number is somewhat fudged, but everything went about as well as it could for Sacramento. And they had the season that you would expect, you would hope to have if everything goes well in that regard. Do I think that's replicable? I don't know. The Clippers are interesting. I know I'm lower on the Suns than most because I just think they overloaded on offense. And I think, when enough people are healthy, they're going to be overwhelming enough in the regular season to make that work. But I just don't trust them to stay healthy. And I don't know, like when you have 3 stars and you're built out the way that they are built out because they have the 3 stars, it makes it really difficult to overcome any kind of injuries, especially if it's to KD or to Booker, Bielsa, and Ayton. Like if Ayton gets hurt, or if Ayton and Landale, or no, they don't even have Landale anymore. But if Ayton gets hurt, that's their only rim protection with that starting group. And what does that look like? So the Suns, I think, are the team that I'm probably going to wind up shorting. I think I'll probably take the under on the win total for them this season. The Clippers feel like a rock band that everybody knows probably should have split up like 2 tours ago. And I think the only reason that they haven't been split up is that Ballmer knows he has this arena that he is about to open up in the next couple years, and he wants as much star power to open that up as he can possibly have. And if you move Paul George, you aren't likely getting a star in return for him. And, I would love to see a Paul George for Dame trade. It would probably be like Dame and some stuff for Paul George, but I would love to see what that would look like. It accomplishes a lot for both teams, and we'll see. But, it does kind of look like Harden is going to wind up being a Clipper. And if so, like, I don't trust Kawhi to stay healthy all year. If Harden comes into this year, out of shape intentionally to mess things up for Philly and make things so uncomfortable, we saw what that did to him in Brooklyn, where he tried to get into shape over the course of the season and he wound up getting hurt as a result of it. So if he winds up, doing the same kind of thing and he gets hurt, and then, Kawhi misses the 20 or 30 games that, he's going to miss. And then if Paul George gets hurt again, and now you don't have the depth that you need to overcome it because you're playing with the 3-star model, then things could get ugly quickly for the Clippers. So, um, I like where the Lakers stand in this division. I think they are the least volatile team of everybody in that group. The Warriors are going to be trying to make it work with Chris Paul, and we got to see what what Clay looks like. So I think the Lakers are probably the least volatile. They have one of the lower ceilings, I think, in the regular season, but I think they have one of the higher floors in the conference, and I think that's really valuable, given what it looks like around the rest of the division. So, yeah, I don't think the Pacific Division is going to offer up 5 playoff teams again. And whoever falls out of that group and isn't a playoff team is probably going to do a lot more losing than you would anticipate. And those super volatile teams really make me nervous in this division. So I kind of like that the Lakers are a little bit more conservative, and they just seem steadier heading into the year, and that I think positions them well to just kind of stay afloat as the other teams just kind of ride crazier roller coasters. All right. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Again, if you have a question, if you have a topic that you want covered, leave it in the form of a 5-star review on iTunes, and I guarantee I am going to be getting to that. It can be on anything. It could be on basketball. By the time you guys are listening to this, it's the last day of July. So ask me about anything. Not just like, you could talk to me about Lakers history. You could talk to me about my own history. You could talk to me about fatherhood and pop culture and stuff. I love talking about all of it. So again, in the form of a 5-star review on iTunes is the best way to guarantee that we cover that topic. You can reply to tweets or threads or whatever we're calling what you send on Blue Sky that I probably shouldn't say on a public forum. And I'll try to get to as many of those questions as I can, but those are always kind of hit and miss. So yeah, thank you everybody for helping me put this pod together. Fun week ahead, as I have some guests lined up that I'm really looking forward to talking to. So make sure you subscribe everywhere that you find your podcasts, and you subscribe on YouTube if you want to watch us talk about that stuff generally live. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.